Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, I'm really excited because I finally finished the course yesterday.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, I was on a really good clip. And then we had a power outage. And I was just like, oh, no problem. Because usually our power and internet are not connected. So if we have a power outage, as long as we turn on the generator, we can use everything with the internet and we're good to go. So I was like, I'm going to spend this weekend knocking out this course and catching up on work. And then the internet went out because a tree branch fell into the internet line. And then it was just like, I don't know what to do with myself. So that threw me off of my entire routine. And so finally yesterday, I had yesterday off. And because we're fostering a puppy that wakes up at the crack of dawn, I got up and just decided to stay up, and everyone went to sleep again. And I was just like, I'm going to knock out the last two segments and then take that final exam. I think I did the last two segments super late Sunday night and then woke up crazy early Monday morning and did the final exam, and I'm done. And I feel so proud.
I was so excited. Like every time, and I know you're a night owl, kind of like me. And I would get these emails at like 1 o'clock in the morning. With like, what does this mean?
Exactly.
I found a typo. Which, thank you. You know, we really need people to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And I've sent it to a lot of people, but you gave me the most feedback. Well, what did you think about it?
I loved it. And so before we go too far, it's like everyone who's listening, we are speaking with Ruby of Real Dog Box and the Feed Real movement. And the course is the dog food nutrition course offered by Feed Real website. It's on that website, and you join the wellness program, and I got access to the course, and I have been playing around with it since sometime in mid-October, I think. Mm-hmm. So I guess technically it took me like a month and a half to finish it, but it could have actually taken, several days if I just had no interruptions. But it was a good course. I loved it. It was what blew me away. And I wish I would have taken notes on things like this as I was going through, with a number of things I didn't know. And I was just like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Like the impact of synthetic vitamins on the system. I mean, I know that synthetic vitamins aren't as bioavailable as fresh food, but I never thought about the fact that basically it, clogs up the system after years of, having this. And so it really made me think about what products I'm going to put into my dog's diet. And it changed the conversation that I have with people. There were things like, and this is one of those no duh type of things, but again, you never really think about it, is the fact that, and I know this from playing around with the animal diet formulator software, is when you change one nutrient, there's this domino effect with everything else. So there is no, if it tells you that you're low in vitamin E, and everything else looks perfect, there's no just adding vitamin E and having everything else stay the same. Right. It's like you basically have to go back to the beginning and start all over again, because everything impacts everything. But it's like, since I don't really look at my dog's diet that way, or, I don't really dive deep into the macro and micronutrients. I, mix in a base mix and call it a day. It's just not something that's on the top of my head. But oh wow, it was kind of mind blowing and really good. I had fun.
I have to say, coming from you, that you learned a lot of things. What a compliment, because I started my raw feeding journey reading your blog.
That's
8 years ago.
Full circle moment.
Yes.
Amazing.
I was about to publish my book and I actually stopped and had to go back and like reread sections of my book to say, and it wasn't that I got something wrong, but I had more information that I could offer better, clarification behind what I was saying. And, and it's one of those where, I thought it was a really good course. And I mean, when it was over, I kind of had, when you read a really good book or a series, the series is what I get. And you get that melancholy where it's
the
like,
book hangover.
Yeah. And you're just going through Audible.
Withdrawals.
Yeah, going through Audible, looking at the recommendation is like, this isn't good enough. And I want something like this, but this, and it's just like, you just feel sad. Or I have a author, she's my absolute favorite author. And I'm a member of her Facebook group, but I actually don't spend a lot of time in it. But there were times where I was just like tapping my foot, waiting till the next book came out. And it was so hard to be like, are you busy? Are you bored or something? Because this is your job. And why are you, when's the next, why is there a delay? And that's kind of how I felt. Cause I went back out and I'm like, well, maybe I'll just look at the next one. And it's like, coming soon. And I'm like, okay, well, fine.
We've been getting really great feedback. And I tell everyone, I actually learn from our customers. I learn from the questions that you ask me. That tells me what we need to write about and teach other people about. We're getting geared up for releasing the professional course, which is just a little more complex than the one that you did. We're headed to Fetch DVM, which will be our first conventional veterinarian conference this Friday.
Oh, wow.
It's here in San Diego, and I'm like, it's in our backyard. We got to go. But I'm also a little bit nervous about how we're going to be received, because when we went to the holistic veterinary conference, everyone was like, yes, welcoming us with open arms. We love real food. We eat fresh food. So we'll see how that goes. And if, we hope that the industry is moving in this direction that, the dog owners and cat owners want them to go. But I think we'll find out for sure on Friday.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start from the beginning.
Yes.
Kimberly
knows I love a good origin story.
I know. He's like, why Real Dog Box? Why?
Oh, wow. I have to tell you, I wasn't prepared for this question.
I know. I'm sorry. I do hard hitting questions when I talk to people.
You do. Well, Erin and I were chatting right before we started about how she's paralegal. I also was a paralegal once in my previous life. And my partner, Turk, his family dog, Atum, had gotten cancer while we were together, not once, but twice. And really quite sad. I mentioned I did that live yesterday with Julianne. Very similar story about cancer, and how sad that unfortunately is the metabolic disease that we see bring all of us together. But he had gotten cancer, and we just started asking, why is this happening? And back then I didn't know a thing about raw feeding at all. Hadn't even heard of it. I didn't even grow up with a dog, believe it or not.
Neither did I. I didn't even know I liked dogs until I was 25.
Same. Exactly. And now I can't imagine my life without them, of course.
I've always had dogs. Weirdos.
But I was in consumer law at the time that it had happened, and really learning about deceptive marketing practices. And when we learned about some of the harmful effects of processed foods, and I don't know why I didn't put two and two together, because I obviously knew it for myself and changing my own eating habits. I remember going to the dog food aisle and being like, chicken breast, filet mignon, like beautiful pictures on the front of that dog food bag, and then turning it over and being like, that's not what's in this. This can't be legal. Is this legal? Of course it is. And that for me was this eye-opening moment about how we just need to start being more transparent about what is in the food and why they could be causing all of these health issues. Mm-hmm. That was the beginning. I just kind of stopped right there. Fast forward a few months, come across this blog, Keep the Tail Wagging, and start learning about raw food and thinking, you know what? We need to switch them to a raw diet. Let's do it right now. Let's fly to California. We were living in Northern Virginia at the time. Let's fly to California, put this dog on a raw diet and see how it works. And then come back home a week later and see if Turk's mom could continue feeding a raw diet. We did it overnight. I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like this. He just went from this old grumpy dog who couldn't walk. He had no desire to live anymore, if you ask me. And we fed him his first chicken quarter beef liver. It was a very simple raw meal. I couldn't tell you exactly what was in it, but I know we used chicken quarters. And he took one bite and it was like life in his eyes that I'd never seen before. And not 24 hours later, he was a new dog. He had this energy that it was just, he was ready to give life another shot. And so I believed in it, 100%, wasn't even in the dog industry at all. And like I said, we were coming back. So we left half of this food with Turk's mom. And we're like, all right, now you know what to do. Just keep feeding raw. Here's a blog. You can read it. And of course she was like, I can't do this. It's so much work. Like I don't have the time for it. So we were thinking about ordering from some sort of subscription service that delivered raw food. 8 years ago, it didn't exist. There may have been one out there, but it certainly didn't deliver all the way to California. So, Turk, I'll tell you, true story. He's sitting on the couch, takes a long rip from his bong, right? Blows out. We should start a dog food subscription service.
That's amazing.
So he's the serial entrepreneur in our partnership. He had started several different businesses. And the one right prior to this was a meal prep company for humans, a paleo food company. So he was already quite familiar with the idea of not having carbs in the diet. And even he grew up feeding raw in Turkey. For some reason, he was tricked like the rest of us coming to America and thinking that feeding a processed food was just kind of what you did. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's how the idea came about. He had already quit his job by then, ready to do something new. I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, do I really love going to work every day and writing the same sort of legal briefs over and over again? And I just didn't.
And working with lawyers.
Yeah, I didn't love it anymore. And I was ready for something new. And I think the question that he asked me is what really got me. He said, do you want to move to California? And I was like, yeah, I do. Because that's where we're going to have to go if we start something new. So we put together several ideas before we finally pulled the trigger. But eventually we ended up moving from the DC area to San Diego and intended fully on making a raw dog food subscription business. We got our first little kitchen area and we were setting up, getting all of our equipment, our freezers, our grinder, our containers, this and that, put together our first product. And it was well over $120 for the smallest dog,
Wow.
And I was like, nobody's going to buy this ever. And we basically knew we couldn't give up. I also am of Asian American heritage, which means when you leave home to do something, venture off to do something new, which is not becoming a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, you better not come back with your tail between your legs. And so I wasn't ready to fail at that point. And so we pivoted our idea from making raw food and took the ingredients of our meals and started drying them individually into treats and chews. And that's how we came up with our flagship product, which was our Real Dog Treat and Chew Box.
Wow.
I love it. I knew the story. So.
Yeah, and a lot has changed since then, but I love telling that story because it reminds me where I came from and how all of these challenges have built up. And I keep going back to the same thing, feed real food. Every time people are like, I'm having this challenge with my dog, we think we're doing it all right. And since I started, this has just been an opportunity to learn every day more information, turn around and share it with everyone I know.
And so how did you decide on doing like a subscription model versus just like, selling in like a retail location or something like that?
Well, there were 3 real problems that we were trying to solve with sending people fresh food: affordability, convenience, and accessibility. So I think the idea of, let's say for ourselves, eating better or going to the gym, starting a new habit sounds really great when you start off, but it's so easy to fall off when it's not convenient. If the gym isn't on your way home, then you're probably not going to stop there. So we wanted to make it so people didn't have to think about how to add variety into their diet. It could just show up every month, something different, something new.
Yeah. I mean, it works for me.
And so where do you source products from? Like, how do you even get these things?
That is probably one of our biggest challenges, especially with what's going on with the economy. We started off getting a lot of our first meats from our local butcher and grocery store. And then we grew into the hundreds and we were like, okay, this is not working. We primarily get our meats from different local ranchers when we can. All U.S. suppliers and USDA distributors. Essentially, the way that our boxes are set up is that there are 4 to 6 different proteins in there, because our goal is to help people add variety into their bowls as much as we can. And that gives us an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is I can put whatever I want to put in next month's box. As long as it's different from the previous 2 months, then our customers are still going to get that variety. But the disadvantage, of course, is that I have to be able to order a certain amount from that particular supplier or various suppliers. So everything starts first in California. Everything we can get within our state comes from our state. We tend to get a lot of our beef and our poultry from Northern California. There's just a lot more land in abundance there. Things like our elk and our mussels, those come from New Zealand. I'm a huge believer in food shouldn't travel far. It really shouldn't. If I can source it locally, I do. And sometimes what happens is I can't get enough for the current box. And that's when you see that smaller supply in the secret shop, because at least I can put it somewhere. It just won't be able to be a regular item in our monthly subscription.
I have to get on this.
See, when I went down there, I mean, I don't know when I joined, but when I joined, I was on just a choose only membership because that's all I needed. But I'm like so conflicted because this little foster puppy is getting into everything right now. And it's like so insane. But anyway, so I was the choose only because that's all I really needed were the chews, because what I found was like when you went to the pet store to buy bully sticks and things like that. And this is also at a time when I didn't question the quality or the sourcing of a lot of the stuff. If it wasn't in a bag that had weird ingredients, if it was a single ingredient item, I thought that was good. It never occurred to me to like, well, what about the processing of those bully sticks or those pig ears? But so I was getting everything there and it was so expensive. I remember, and this was years ago, and I remember there was bully sticks that were like $18 each. And the best price was from Costco, where they had a huge bag of bully sticks, and they were too long for my dog, so I had to use a chop saw to cut them in half. And back now, it's like, I have no idea where those bully sticks were sourced. I have no idea how they were processed, because that was at a time when I wasn't really looking into things like that. It was just like, we're doing the best that we can. And so when I discovered Real Dog Box and I was able to get everything, like a variety of things in my box every month and not really worry about it. And the best part for me was, one month I got chicken and I was just like, oh, I don't really want to give my dogs chicken because Rodrigo had chicken sensitivities, and Ruby's like, oh, no problem. We just won't put it in anymore. And I'm just like, what? And I'm thinking, maybe I'll just have to take it and, give it to friends or something. But what's even better over the years, and I tell people this all the time, is that I have had like a backlog of boxes because they come every month, and I don't give my dogs treats or chews on a daily basis. So I would just basically stack them up. And there were times when I would, like, if it was a holiday, I would put together gift baskets of Real Dog Box to give as gifts to my friends' dogs, because I had I would have like a huge, like a tote bag filled with it and still have plenty at home. And now I'm greedy and I very rarely share. And because, again, back then I didn't think about the fact that, one, it was always chews, but two, there were a lot of things that I could be adding to the meal. And I didn't think of it that way. I always thought of them as a treat. But when I was down in October and I got a tour, by the time I walked around the entire facility, saw how everything was done, I was just sitting down and it's like, so how do I upgrade? And now I get the treats and chews. So, and it's funny because the emails come where it's like, oh, we're packing up a box. And I have no idea if this is the damage I did in the secret shop or my actual box, but it feels like I'm getting a box like every other week. Because it's like there's something I did. The box I got the other day was filled with rabbit meatballs, and I was so happy because it's like I've just been crumpling them over everyone's meals, and I use them for Rodrigo because since he's a senior, something I learned in the course, he needs more protein in his diet than the other dogs. So I, instead of since he eats a partial or lightly cooked diet, I don't want to really add raw to his diet. I want to just add another protein. And I try just like getting different proteins and putting them in there. And sometimes he's down for it. Sometimes he's not, but he always loves the meatballs. So now I just throw the meatballs in there.
Is Rodrigo the one that also requires that organ mix garnish?
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, he will not. He's gotten better about it. And the reason why is because, I switched him. He has a brand that I switch him to that he really likes. And so, but there are times where he will look at his food and look at me and I feel like such a failure because he's just like, it's like, you don't know who I am. And I go to the cabinet and I pull down and I sprinkle it on the top. In fact, I used a bag of it in meal prep, my last meal prep, because I ran out of my frozen organ blend.
I use it all the time for that. Yeah. It is so convenient. And it's so funny. The secret shop has come a long way. It used to be that we had to, Erin, are you familiar with the secret shop? Have you heard about
I know
this?
It's a thing.
So basically, I really do try to be a zero waste facility. And after we started growing into the thousands of subscribers, we had a lot of smaller pieces that were left over. And I just couldn't stomach throwing it away. Like we used to give it to our staff and their dogs, but it just got to be too much. So I said to Turk, which, he does all of our technology. I'm like, I need a private website where we can sell only to our customers, because I don't want to start doing regular e-commerce and running into the issues of like being out of stock and this and that. So essentially he built what we call the secret shop, which is a private site only accessible if you have a subscription or a membership with us. And the idea was we would just put in bulk products of extras, things that didn't make the cut, didn't meet our quality. They were too big, too small, or I could only source a small amount of and throw it in there so our customers would be able to access it whenever they wanted. And whenever they want really means like there people would be in there like 1-2 o'clock in the morning when I'm trying to add inventory. And I'm like, who are these people? Why are they not in bed? So we turned it into this like, okay, we're going to have a specific drop time. And it has evolved into giving us the ability to put all the products in at once at a certain time. So we send out a text message and we say, hey, Kimberly, we're going to have a drop today. It's going to be at 1:00.
Yep. And I'm
this is
sitting
what
at my computer.
This is like Taylor Swift tickets all over again.
I know, it is crazy. And it was so funny because Ruby and I were at a conference at the beginning of October, and I feel like I'm a monster. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm a monster, but I got priorities. And so during the memorial, there was a video where they were showing people's pets that had passed. Scout was included in it. He was the last photo. So I did see it. But during the memorial, I'm sitting on the ground with my computer, hitting refresh. And someone comes and sits down with me and is talking to me. And I'm just sitting here like thinking to myself, just shh. I mean, it's like hitting refresh. And I missed out on the green stripe pucks. But I got other stuff that I needed. And then when I got it, I was just like, okay. But I actually did a reel about it where I'm explaining to people, this is what you need to do.
Like, I know. You gave away all your secrets.
I know. It's like you have to go in there and it's like whatever you're going in there for, you need to add that to your cart first and pay for it, because it's like a game, because people can take out of your cart. It's not like they are literally taking out of your cart, but if you don't buy it, it's not yours. Putting it into your cart doesn't secure it. You have to pay for it and buy it. That's the only way. So when I got the drop about the rabbit meatballs, I was refresh. And when it was open, I put 8 in my cart. If I need more, pay for those, go back, put 8 more, and I'll do that. I've done that with rabbit heads where I just keep going back and back. And then you go back and you can scroll through and see if there's anything else you want. But it's like that. There's a system to it. There is no casual shopping in the secret shop.
No, not at all.
And it goes, I mean, how fast do things sell out on average?
3 seconds. It's very fast. And so what I was going to say is we've come a long way in now being able to automate that. But the one thing we can't is the screen record. So one person on our team is like, okay, I put it all in there. And the other person's like, okay, I'm going to get the screen record. And it's almost always the ground organ mix. So we'll be scrolling, and it'll say sold out. And I'm like, who bought this already? I'm telling you, 99% of the time I go in and I'm like, Kimberly, how many dogs does she actually have? How much organ mix does she need? Because I'm pretty sure she bought all of it.
I have a lot. I haven't got, and it's funny because there was a time where I couldn't get organ mix for a while, and I, like a big crybaby baby, I was just like, Ruby, I grab my phone, texting, like, and she's like, I saved you some. And I'm like, thank you, because I could not get it. Because I was just like, who's buying it? It's mine. And, I struggle between the content creator where I'm telling people here's an alternative, to the greedy pet parent that everyone knows that buys everything out of freezers when companies close. But yeah, I don't know how many bags I have, but I'm good. But I've learned not to just be comfortable with that. So I no longer buy the lamb one because I have plenty of those, and I have plenty of the bison, but I'm out of the beef because I've gone through that now. But I'm almost done with my rabbit heads because I ordered so many rabbit heads that I got this huge box on my porch one day filled with rabbit heads. And I don't remember when I did that. It was probably in the beginning of the summer. And I'm almost out. And by almost out, I probably have less than 20.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I have a little market. It's like all organized by type. There's the fish stuff. There's the organ stuff. There's the chews. I have everything organized. And that way I can go in and figure out what I need and what I don't need.
So when Kimberly went to visit you in October, she was sending me photos of the organizational porn of how well your facility is set up, because she and I both love things being super organized, even though I am, as a person, am not always super organized. I love looking at it and aspire to be that way.
I'm with you. That's my team. I can't take any credit for that. As we've grown, I really can't be in the kitchen as often as I would like to be. And there's so many moving parts that come with a subscription and the 6 different products or 8 different products that are in the monthly lineup, because once you run out, then you have to be able to quickly substitute it if somebody has, a restriction because of an intolerance or just a preference. There's all these things that you have to have on hand, but they're amazing. They figured out what works for them, and I try not to meddle in there because I'll just mess it up. In fact, it did used to be me answering all of the customer service requests. When someone would text in, it would be me texting back. I'm not allowed to talk to customers anymore. I'm not allowed to touch any of our orders. Everyone's like, I got it. We'll take care of it. Don't worry.
I know it's crazy organized, but I thought of you this weekend, and Erin, I almost texted you, but it was super late. But I went to Costco and I got this battery organizer because
wow.
we have so many batteries, and I'm always like, I'll be at Costco and I'll be like, oh, I think we need batteries. And I'm that person where I'm constantly buying batteries and I don't know what we have. And I discovered during this process that we have so many D batteries. It's insane. But the flashlights we have don't take D batteries, which is frustrating. But yeah, so this is like so cool. And it's 2-sided. So there's
wow.
I know.
Wow.
I was having so much fun doing this. And I just kept asking Johan, do you want to help? And he's just like, no, I'm good. You go ahead.
Do you actually take your batteries to the appropriate place to discard them?
Is there an appropriate place?
Yes.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah.
I mean, I know for like a car battery, but.
Yeah.
And light bulbs are supposed to go to a place too.
They don't make it easy at all.
Well, our dump has a whole section where it has like, batteries and all these different things.
Is this a West Coast thing?
Maybe.
Probably.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I wondered about it, and I know this is like crazy off topic, but I just don't believe the recycling. I just don't believe it. I mean, I think that there are companies that are doing things where they're creating products out of recycled materials, but I just don't believe that a lot of the stuff. I'm convinced that my recycle container that I pay extra for is going to the same place that my trash is going to. I'm still going to recycle because maybe I'm wrong, but sometimes I'm just sort of like, I don't know.
I've looked into that a little bit, and I'm with you. When we were trying to find more environmentally friendly packaging, just for example, looking into compostable packaging, it doesn't truly exist at all. Or the biodegradable. I know, conversation for another time, but you're right.
But
Trust
still,
your instincts.
poo bags, which I just took away from the puppy because she was walking around with this entire huge container in her mouth. These are I don't know about this brand, but there are brands where the poo bags are supposed to break down. And this is like in my early years as a blogger when I just kept getting mind blasted by the fact that nothing is as it seems. But I was just like, I'm using these ones and they're like, yeah, they never break down. She's like, they break apart, but they never break down. So they're always there. And I was just like, oh, I kept one for years because I didn't believe it. And sure enough, it just becomes crumbly. But it doesn't evaporate and turn in. It just comes these crumbly little pieces of plastic.
Well, Ruby, I do actually appreciate hearing that you're putting that much effort into what's happening with your products and trying to do the environmentally responsible thing, even though that's questionable whether that actually is possible or not.
Yeah, it's hard. We try to take small steps. Right now, we can officially say that we have glueless packaging. So that's another thing. You can't truly recycle a bag if it has adhesive on it. So any sort of, if it's truly a compostable bag, let's say, or a bag that's made from recycled material, once that adhesive glue from the label is put on it, they can't recycle it. And so that's why we went through this whole thing of switching our packaging to have a paper insert to represent what the label as required by the FDA. And it's not as pretty as we would like it to be, but that was the reason. And that was just the small step that we could take towards that.
So what kind of regulations do you have to deal with just with treats? Because I was thinking, like, if it's food, you have the AFCO and you have all this kind of stuff, but I hadn't really thought about that insofar as treats.
Well, we still have to abide by AFCO regulations because they've been adopted by the state of California. We're regulated by the California Health Department, and they come in and they do our inspections every 2 years whenever we have to renew our license. During COVID, that was obviously not really happening at a lot of places. But and that's just because we don't have any raw food. Once you cross that line of doing a raw product that's going to be shipped out in that way, then you need to have a USDA inspector on site.
Do they have to be on site all the time?
They're supposed to be. And it also depends because there are some people that have like joint food processing facilities. So being on site doesn't necessarily mean that they're like watching only you. They could be making their rounds and just making sure that the facility is up to par.
I've always wondered about that. Who pays their salary? Still the government?
No, the company has to have them. Gosh. Right. So right now we are shipping to Canada, and that was a really big thing for us, but we're getting a lot of interest from retail stores to carry our product. And when you're shipping in larger quantities like that, it again requires a different licensing. All very confusing. Mm-hmm. No one can give me a straight answer. But what we're trying to find out is that there's a veterinary inspector employed by the APHIS. I can't think of right now what the acronym stands for, but it's a federal entity or government office, and they have to come and sign off on your product every 30 days. And I'm like, this is my question. Do I have to pay every time somebody comes? Because sometimes we're shipping out, right? No one will answer me. And I'm like, it's fine. I will pay for it, but I just need to understand. And right now it's not clear, but usually, yes, it's whoever is requiring them to be on site is responsible for paying for that period of time.
So why did you guys start the Feed Real movement?
That grew out of all of the wonderful questions we were getting from our members. As you probably have encountered in the raw feeding community, there's a lot of different people and personalities.
Oh, and that's such a nice way to say. There's a lot of people that know what the hell they're talking about, but they don't have a problem sharing their misinformation with anyone who asks, and causes a lot of issues. And I only say that because, and I know I sound a bit bitter, but as I was on the phone with someone as I was unraveling the crap that she's absorbed from social media, where it's like, none of that is true. It's like, that's not how any of this works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So continue.
And we wanted to create sort of like a Wikipedia for dog food, where you could just go to one central location and find anything that you needed. And it was a long time coming. It was a lot of like putting what was in here on paper, and I needed help with that. So we brought on a couple of nutrition researchers and writers who helped us put together the site. We took all of our research, just the real food research and some of the myths that a lot of our community has encountered, and took a stab at debunking them, but not just saying, well, this is what I think. Here's the actual study. And so one of the women that's on our team, she was at Notre Dame and part of their animal nutrition program for quite some time. And she's got a wonderful story to share. But she has access to a lot of the studies that are not available to the public. A lot of the veterinary studies that will say, for example, garlic is terrible for our dogs. And she'll be like, nope, this is the study. This is how many dogs they actually tested it on. Here were the results. These are all the fallacies. And she really helps us sort of break all of those down in those articles on Feed Real. I also wanted to we've been accused several times of kibble shaming. And that's obviously not my intention. You know, I want people to use our boxes as a sort of a toolbox, like a stepping stone to more variety and more fresh food. But I couldn't put out all the content that I wanted to about fresh food on Real Dog Box without offending someone.
Mm-hmm.
I still offend people. I offend people all the time. You probably too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I accept that.
But Feed Real allowed us a platform where we could just talk about just that and be like bold with our statements. Yes, we believe in feeding real food, and that's where we stand. So far, though, it has just been very difficult to sort of balance both. Like even myself, I get lost between like, oh wait, where does this go? Who am I? What am I doing? But the amount of positive feedback that we're getting, especially from the veterinary professional, like not just vet techs, but even their like front staff, their receptionists who say, you know, I pick up the phone and I get asked questions about fresh food and I don't know how to answer them. Mm-hmm. So they're looking for a resource that they didn't have when they were in school. So being able to provide that to them is just, it's amazing and so fulfilling and sort of like a reminder of why we're doing what we're doing. Do you see this guy?
Who's that guy?
This is Icon.
With his big head.
He looks like a big boy.
He's our Anatolian Shepherd. Yeah.
He is giant.
He's being very demanding with pets right now.
He is.
So how many dogs do you have?
Just one. He's enough. Yeah, he weighs about 140 pounds. Wow. That was the verdict this last week. These are new. These are bulk pork loin steaks from the secret shop. Yeah.
He's very excited. Eyes were getting really big.
He walks away. That's what I came here for. Yeah.
Oh my God. He must just think you smell amazing like all the time.
He does. Well, he grew up. I mean, we got him, 2 months after we incorporated our business. Wow. So he's seen everything. He's our CTO, our Chief Tasting Officer. And he's actually very picky. If you're familiar with livestock guardians, many of them are not very food motivated. It hurts me too, because I'm just like, just try it. I think if you try it, you'll like it. He's like, you can't buy me with food. I'm not like your other customers.
Well, you know, after I did my course and I was going through my melancholy moment. I was just going through the articles on the website, and it's so much great content in the articles. And, you know, and speaking of the course, what I loved is like at the end of the course, if you're just not convinced, it's all the links to everything that was said in the course. So you can continue educating yourself. And
you know, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, yeah, totally up your alley. And I just got such a kick out of it. It was a lot of fun.
It's the legal background.
I was just thinking, like, paralegals can do anything. Like, we get tasked with like doing insane things that like you wouldn't think would be in our skill set, but like, look at you, like we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Has anyone asked you, you've been practicing for a long time as a paralegal, but why you didn't go to law school or want to become an attorney?
I was very close to doing it at one point, actually. And I do get asked that. And I did all the LSAT prep. And, you know, I really had like this come to Jesus moment with myself where I'm like, this is not the life I want. And it was not worth the like time, money, and energy investment to me. And I think I would have just been miserable. Like, and so I feel very fortunate to have landed somewhere where what I bring to the table is appreciated.
For me, it was part of that, but also I love project management. I like seeing the bigger picture. I thought going to law school and being kind of tied up in these small legal arguments over and over again, that was just not for me. I wanted to be like, I'll bring in the expert witness and I'll make sure that everything's scheduled to be on
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
So it's a different skill set.
Yeah. Like we deal with a lot of expert doctors. I have to do a lot of like prepping my boss for expert depositions where I'm digging into all this medical research and, scientific research and, laying all the stuff out. Like I love doing that kind of stuff, but I also get to do like a variety of things too. Like that's not my all day, every day, but it's
yeah. See, you could start a business. That's all you need.
I'm working on it. And then, PowerPoints, like when we do trials and, you have to create like these PowerPoints of, for the expert witness cross or something, and so I get to do a lot of that stuff where you're kind of trying to deconstruct this stuff and make it so that a juror can understand it. And, I totally I love that stuff.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we did with the course. We came up with the idea of the course because I needed an internal training program for my team. When we started doing our nutrition consultations, it was the same idea. Like, how can I get everything that's in here into somebody else's brain? Might as well put it on paper. So we started that course and then realized, for lack of a better word, that we had to dumb it down a little bit for your casual dog owner. Otherwise, it was just going to be far too complex, and things that they frankly just don't need to know when they're first starting out. Yeah. But that's exactly what we have to do.
Yeah, that's what I love about it, is that I feel like it's just enough information without becoming overwhelming. So, I mean, one thing that, one big critique I have about the fresh food community are the number of pseudoscientists that are running around, talking about, well, is it calcium or is it calcium carbonate? And it's like, do you know what you're saying? And do you know why are you asking that? And, when you start diving into the questions that they have or the things that they're bringing up, they just heard something and it sounded good. So now they're repeating it. And I was talking to a friend earlier today, and I was like, the reason why because my audience is usually people who are brand new to raw feeding. And so many of them don't think that they can feed raw because they think it's so complicated. And it's like, yeah, because people are having discussions in this group as if they just came out of biology class. And I'm not convinced that any of them know what they're talking about or mean anything. And it's, to the average pet parent, we don't need to know these things to feed our dogs. I don't care. Right. But I do find it interesting. So I find it interesting that, like some vitamins, you need this vitamin so that this vitamin works better. That type of thing is interesting to me. I don't need to memorize it. I don't need to have a discussion about it, but I like being told, because by the time I was finished with the course, I didn't walk away from the course feeling like I needed to change anything that I'm doing. I just walked away from the course feeling more confident in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I thought it was fun. I thought it was I thought it wasn't dumbed down so much that it was just sort of like, yeah, okay, feed fresh food. Hey, it was some really good information in there, but it wasn't so complicated that it was just like, I'm never going to understand this. This doesn't make any sense to me type of situation. And what I love is this is the second course of this nature that I've taken over the years. And I had fun. The first time around, I actually, it was a good course, but I do feel like it was very much raw, good, kibble, bad. Where with this course, it started out of, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. But if you're still feeding kibble, this is what you can do. There's like a whole half of the course before it gets into the raw feeding portion that gives people who are still feeding kibble tips. So you can still take this course and learn more about dog nutrition and incorporate what you're learning into a kibble diet. And I love the gentle way that you take people along. So instead of basically taking someone and rubbing their nose in the kibble and going, no, with a newspaper, you're just like slowly going through. And by the time you finish, I hope that people are like more enthusiastic about the idea of eating raw.
And so is this a course where you can learn to like do a DIY diet yourself?
That's the idea. It's to help you feel knowledgeable and confident and comfortable with switching to a raw diet. We have a few things that you can do after the course. Like we started a virtual workshop, a DIY workshop where we basically force you to go out and source your own food, do a little shopping trip. I toyed with the idea of sending people everything they needed to make their food. And I was like, if I make this too easy for you, you're not going to go out and do it yourself. So you have to be committed. So you go out and you source your own food, and then you join us for like an hour and a half workshop on the weekend, and we just put it all together. And it's kind of like taking all the bits and pieces that you learned in the course and now applying it. So you're like, oh, I know why I'm adding this, or I can do this if my dog doesn't like that.
Mm-hmm. Because like I've always done commercial raw brands because I'm just like so afraid I'm going to mess something up, or, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of people do. That's like the thing that I hear from people all the time is I am terrified that I'm going to mess something up. And it's funny because the best example I have is I fed raw for 3 years, where I was just like throwing stuff in the bowl. I mean, I think it was a little more advanced than just going to the store and buying a pack of ground beef and mixing in rice. But I wasn't really following anything. I was in the 80-10-10 school. So
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, it's mostly muscle meat and then some organ meat and some bone. And to me, that was it. Maybe I'll put a spoonful of vegetables in there for fiber. And that's what I did for years. And then it started with a video Rodney and Karen did, where they added oysters. They were making a meal and they put canned oysters in there. And so I Googled what's in canned oysters. And then that took me down this rabbit hole. And instead of looking at it as a way to balance a meal, I just found a bunch of other foods that I could start adding to my dog's meals. And I just kept going from there. And I just think it's a lot of fun, for me at least, to do those type of things.
Well, the thing is, it's getting expensive to do pre-made for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, it's very expensive.
And that was really the initial reason for wanting to offer the course virtually. We get questions all the time about, where do I get these things? Nobody has that in my location. And I'm like, let me try. I think I can find it for you. And so we're putting together, this is a new thing that's coming out, our directory, which is meant to help DIY raw feeders. So nice. I know you have your co-ops on there. We started with that, but for a lot of people that was just inaccessible or not, they couldn't buy in bulk.
Right.
So this one that we're going to release in a couple of weeks has different Asian markets that we've sort of pinpointed that have like actually carry duck feet or duck wings and some of the things that you don't know where to get at your regular grocery store. And I think that's going to be so, so helpful for a lot of people.
Do you ever get grossed out when you're like, here's a rabbit head or a duck foot? Like,
not anymore. No. I do have to say, the other day, the team was processing duck heads. And for whatever reason, like one duck eyeball had fallen out. And so one of our young employees, he's walking around with these two eyes and a duck tongue. And he's like, look, very excited about it. But I'm like, dude, too much. I can't. So I have to say that's one of the few times, at least in the last couple of years, like just when you think that you've seen it all. But, even now the smell of green tripe doesn't bother me at all.
No, it stopped bothering me a while ago. Nothing really bothers me too much. I just don't look at it too much. It's just, I just go through it. I don't think there's anything I wouldn't feed. Oh, that's not true. One thing that I won't feed to my dog straight is pancreas. And that's because it's just a pain in the neck to handle.
Just like slips right through your fingers.
Yeah, exactly. You have to, in order for it to be, at least that's what I've been told by a few people. I talked to people down at greentripe.com and it's like you have to whip it up, but it has to be fed at room temperature. You have to whip it up like in a food process. And it was just like once all you had to do was say room temperature and I'm just sort of like, okay, because I can do that, but all these extra steps for one piece of meat, that was just like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
What about brain?
That doesn't bother me. I actually had a case of brain, and I finally ran out of it in 2020 and haven't been able to get it since. But yeah, I would, it was a source of omega-3 fatty acids, and I would feed brain. I like the look on Erin's face.
I'm dying. I'm also the girl that threw up in Girl Scout camp when we were dissecting a cow eyeball. So,
well, there's my love of Grey's Anatomy. So I've gotten back to the beginning once again, and I think I'm in season 3 now. And there's an episode where Karev has to release the pressure on a kid's brain and take fluid out, and he needs to do it through the eye. So take a needle and draw it out through the eye. I leave the room. It's like not even enough for me to pause it. And I know that it's coming. I just get up and walk out of the room. It doesn't take long, but I cannot handle that. And I will, But there are so many things that just don't bother me. Just like, we had an accident in the house when we first started. And it's just so funny. I just hear, Kimberly, she pooped. And, in my world, you pick it up, flush it, clean the area, move on. But in his world, you call me, because it does not bother me whatsoever. I mean,
yeah.
It's none of this stuff it does. I find it actually kind of interesting especially once I learn about like what it's for, where it's coming from, things like that. It doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm not putting my fingers through it and going, ew. Okay, I did that once because I wanted to freak Johan out. I don't make a habit of it.
I mean, I've got a whole rabbit in my sink that Icon's getting for dinner tonight.
I've been tempted to, because I can get whole rabbit, but I don't know. I know that Apollo would do great on it. I don't know how the other guys would do. And so I started with the rabbit heads. When I started feeding them, oh gosh, I remember when I ordered, because everything I order is in bulk, and I had a case of duck hearts. And it's funny because the company sells duck gizzards in 5-pound bags, but the duck hearts are just all free into a big, huge box. And so you have to slightly thaw it so you can separate it. And then I was putting it into individual bags, and he comes into the kitchen and it's just like, how many ducks died? And I was just like, thousands of them. And it's just like, that bothers him. But yeah, when the rabbit heads came, he does not. Like, I don't.
It's a lot.
I don't feed. There are certain things I don't feed when he's around, and because it's just like he just can't. Whereas I'm just like, to me, the rabbit heads are my lazy day meal, where it's just like, I don't feel like bothering with you guys here.
Same.
Have a rabbit head.
I have like the Bambi syndrome where I'm like, but that was like a cute little duck. And I see the ducks that we have ducks that come and swim in our backyard when it floods. And
those aren't the same ducks. To me, it's like, it's not the same. However, if my dog were to take down a duck, I would be bummed out. If my only issue is like, do whatever you want to do. I don't care. I just don't want to hear the animal screaming. So Apollo, that's why I call it murder. He murdered a rabbit a few years ago.
Yeah.
And
we've had rabbit murders.
Yeah. Rabbits scream when they're being murdered, and it's horrifying.
Yes.
And
And with our old girls, our old gals that have both passed away now, they were like the tag team, like rabbit murdering duo. Yes. Like, you would not believe. I mean, they had to have killed dozens of rabbits over the years in our yard. They had a whole system. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so there was times when like they didn't quite finish the job, and Tim had to go out there. And like, he would be like, he had like PTSD, and he would be like, I see it every time I close my eyes, and I had to do this, like, but I had to end the suffering. And like,
thankfully my dogs do finish the job. But yeah, I have been outside screaming at rabbits, like, this isn't safe. What are you doing here?
We didn't have rabbits in our yard for like 5 years because I think they all finally learned.
They started telling each other.
Yeah. And like these two,
that's the murder house.
Like these Penny and Nino, like Nino is such a bull in a china shop that like you can hear him coming, like he can't sneak up on anything. And Penny, Penny's my old lady, so I don't think she'd know what to do with it. She just likes the running part. Like, I don't think she'd actually know like what to do if she caught something.
Yeah. And of course I have, these herding mixed dogs. So it was Rodrigo, Scout, and Zoe. They would work to corner the rabbit. And I don't know what they would have done if they caught the rabbit, but they would corner it. But Apollo was the one. And it was at the time, I was just like, he's my sweet little puppy. And he was just like, yanked it out and just laid on the ground staring at me as he ate it. And the rabbit went down his throat backwards. So it was horrifying because I didn't look at them it's like on one hand, it was just sort of like nature. And it was like, they ate the whole thing. They didn't shake out the stomach contents. It was like part of my brain was doing that. And the other part of my brain was like, what is happening?
They weren't like, is this 80-10-10?
I know exactly.
Like, I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm not feeding you tonight. You're good.
Yeah, no, I am so fascinated by watching dogs eat. There's this Instagram account, Nature is Metal. Do you follow it?
No.
It's pretty next level, Erin. Okay, it might not be for you.
I'm thinking that's probably the case.
But it's just that, like, things that happen that a lot of us don't want to see or just don't see on a daily basis, but it's out there.
Yeah.
I was doing a ton of research this afternoon because I thought we might be talking about this recent acquisition. And I went down the rabbit hole of American consumerism and how the Industrial Revolution started and why there is so much meat production in America. I know more about the Cold War between U.S. and Russia, or the then US, Soviet Union.
Does that play into meat production?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So short version is that during the Cold War, they're basically these two powers that are fighting to be the superior one. And it was obviously beyond the arms race. It was also the farms race. And one of the ways that the US would show superiority was by displaying what was in their supermarket. Like, how much can we produce? How much fresh food do we have that you don't have? And it goes even further back, like basically after the war, there had already been an increase in meat production. And that came from, government subsidies for the crops, the grain, and all of that. And they were like, we have an abundance of all of this food. Who do we feed it to? And that's how the meat industry ended up blowing up. And that's why there were all of those subsidies for feedlot food. Cue AFCO, 40 years later, that is supposed to be responsible for regulating or at least setting up some of those rules. But that is why we have one of the biggest meat consuming countries in the world, because we just have so much of it. But yeah, I was looking at it and, there's a lot of waste, and that also plays into why there are so many pet food manufacturers in America as well. It's insane. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of things that I think as an everyday consumer or a casual pet owner, as I like to call it, you just don't really think about. So it's easy to sort of judge companies and being like, they sold out. Why did they make that move? And it's like, there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, especially when it comes to the recession and costs going up.
And it just makes me think like how disconnected we are from like where our food comes from and why we eat what we eat and what is actually like in our food, both for, humans as well as dogs. And back in August, my husband got some concerning news from his doctor about like cholesterol and blood pressure and prediabetes. And he wasn't like, he kind of had a beer gut, but, it's not somebody you would think was like obese or something. And he got really concerned because he didn't want to have to take these medicines. So we've been doing the keto diet. And so he has lost 25 pounds since August. I have lost 15 pounds, and we're like really paying so much attention. I mean, trying to navigate Thanksgiving and what I just ate whatever the heck I wanted to eat, but he did not eat mashed potatoes. And I was like, oh my God. And, just really thinking about like, well, what it goes into stuffing, and, it's like, it's stovetop and you just like add water, and like, well, what is these ingredients? And I don't know, it's just been really fresh in my mind the last couple months of just like exactly what we're eating. And, I almost feel like sometimes I was paying too much attention to the dogs and maybe not enough to myself,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think that's pretty common. And it's unfortunate that it takes sometimes news like that for us to really make change. And I think that's even why myself, I'm not grossed out by a lot of things, because I'm like, well, that's what he's eating, so I guess I could eat it too. Turk's getting ready to start like this carnivore diet.
Yeah.
So he said I needed to get a second chest freezer because he doesn't want to share with Icon. He's like, I might accidentally. But you know what they did do? This is why I'm not grossed out by anything. I got one lamb head with the fur on and everything for Icon. And then I asked our butcher to skin the other one. And he was like, oh, does he not like the hair anymore? And I'm like, no, it's for Turk, actually. So he put them on in the smoker this weekend, and that's what he ate for dinner last night.
Nice.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, it is.
I tasted it. It was delicious, but not really my cup of tea.
Yeah, I can't eat lamb at all.
Oh, really?
Like, personally, just because Mary had a little lamb. Like, I have a lot of weird hang-ups about food. Like, I can't eat deer because of Bambi. Like, venison, I can't do. Like,
well, it's what my hang-ups on food is. I mean, it may have been things like that years and years ago, but today it's, to me, venison is dog food. And so is elk. Those are the type of things, goose, all of those things. Turkey and all that, that's okay. But in my head, that's what I first think of is when people offer me something, my head goes to, can I feed it to my dogs? And now they just get used to that because they're just like, can dogs have squid? And I'm like, well, let me look it up. Yes, they can. And the ink in squid has cancer-fighting benefits, by the way. And so, yeah, I have all kinds of really cool like things. And now I have a better dehydrator. So I'm like super excited to start dehydrating.
Did you end up getting that freeze dryer?
No, I didn't. I was going to get it. I didn't win the giveaway. I did enter a second giveaway though. But I was thinking about doing it, but I was just like, I would use it. But I use my dehydrator so much more. And I just really love the dehydrator. So I was just like, I'm just not prepared to spend $3,000 on equipment just yet. It's like, I need to have a really good reason for doing it. My friend, I think she's about to buy her second one. And she has hers running like 24/7 because she buys raw food in bulk and then freeze dries it. Don't know why she doesn't just buy freeze dried food. Well, I do know her dogs really like this one brand. And so she's like, that's what she's buying. And then she's freeze drying it so that, and she buys it like 10 to 15 cases at a time and just goes and freeze dries half of it so that she always has it on hand. And,
wow.
And I, like right now, this time of year, I wouldn't be using it. I was using it a lot in the summer when I had like my garden and things like that. But I don't really have a garden that I have excess. I make my garden small enough that I can use everything. And I go through and I use everything. Like even with like our apples, I did miss out on apples this year only because a friend said she wanted some apples. And so I picked her some and she never came and got them. And bugs got into them and I was so annoyed. But though the wind is howling outside. So now one of my dogs is barking. But anyway, but I turned the apples that I did pick, 2 buckets full, into a fiber supplement. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm clever like that. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to get one yet, but I might. It's funny because I got an email that like the Black Friday sale, and it's like, this is a best sell of the year. And it's like, it's still $2,700. Shut up.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of money. If I'm going to spend that much money, that thing needs to be used. But then, like talking to you guys and stuff, that's the thing, is that it's hard to get negative information about freeze dryers because people who use them are such fans and everyone loves them. I mean, they do talk about, oh, well, yeah, there's this and there's this. But for the most part, everyone loves them and they just want you to get one too. I mean, I have people like, call this guy and he can help you get a scratch and dent one. And I'm just like, no, I need to know the truth. And one thing I never thought about was like the energy impact. Like, what is our electric bill going to look like if we're using this thing a lot? And so now I'm going to give it another year if I decide to get one.
I think the nice thing about the dehydrator is that typically it has a larger capacity than the freeze dryer. Like, it's this big old washing machine looking thing. And then it's got like these 10 mini trays.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, and because when I was going to get the freeze dryer, I don't know what happened one day. And I was just like, I just want a better dehydrator. And so I went over to Cabela's and I stood there like for a long time staring at all these and even now it's like, I wish I would have gotten a different one. I was planning to go on Black Friday, like over the weekend, and get this bigger one. But I was just like, no, you're going to stop right now. So, but I did get a really nice one. And that thing, I have given it the workout. I love it. And it is so amazing. And it fits so much. I mean, I have so many treats that I've made out of that. I would dehydrate my broccoli sprouts in it. Dandelion
oh
greens.
yeah.
I go around the property before things bloom and start picking when they're just the dandelions, and get the dandelions and the greens. This time around, I did it in the fall and I did like the dandelions. There were no flowers, just the greens, and wash them up and dehydrated those. And so in the spring, I'll do that with the flowers. And it doesn't take long. And it's just, probably like 6 hours, 7 hours at a low temperature. And it's really easy to do, and then grind everything up into a powder. So I have a jar full of dandelion greens. I have a jar full of broccoli sprouts. And I think that's all I have for now. I tried to do raspberries, I think. Did I try to do? Yeah, but they didn't really turn out. They were still kind of mushy.
And the other thing is, some dogs are picky about the texture of freeze-dried over air-dried or dehydrated.
Yeah.
Your dogs don't seem very picky at all.
No, not really. I think it's funny because I was talking to someone today and she was talking about her dog is so picky. And I was like, it sounds like your dog has a food sensitivity, not that your dog is picky, because it's like you're saying that your dog doesn't want to eat something, but you're also saying that the last time you fed that, your dog had diarrhea. And I always think about like, probably a few weeks ago, I had duck eggs for the first time. I've been feeding them to my dogs for a year, but I keep hearing they're so much better than chicken eggs. You got to try these. And finally, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to try a duck egg. Well, some people can't eat duck eggs. I am one of those people.
Oh, no.
And it was horrible. To be gross, I projectile vomited for about 15 minutes. And like probably 10 minutes after I finished the duck eggs. I mean, like my body was just like, nope, out of here. And I was laying on the floor in the bathroom. Apollo just came and sat next to me because I was just like, I was like, okay, thank you. And I felt sick just all day. And now I know. I Googled it, and it's just like some people just can't eat duck eggs. And I actually got off easy with my reaction to it. But it's just sort of like, but because of that experience, I will never eat duck eggs again because I know they're not for me. And who's to say dogs don't understand that, you know what? The last time I ate something like this, I was in the yard and my stomach and
yeah, and they know the smell too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, why not? And so it's like maybe your dog is trying to tell you, hey, I can't eat this.
Yeah.
And I also, it bothers me because, going back to the community, and I get this because it's so funny when I remember being new and wanting to try everything because you hear about all these things and it never occurs to you that, hey, that might not be a good fit for your dog. And so you want to try everything. And if your dog doesn't like something or doesn't do well on something, you kind of feel like you must have did it wrong. And it's just like, no. It's just that, some dogs actually do have a lactose intolerant. And even though goat's milk has lower lactose than cow's milk, it still is there. And it's not a good fit for your dog. And that's okay. There's so many other things that you can be feeding your dog. And that was the conversation I had with someone this morning where I just explained that because she was just like, I just want to know what to feed my dog. And it's like, unfortunately, it's trial and error. It's like that's, whether it's commercial raw or DIY, it's so much trial and error. So I was like, don't buy anything in bulk because it's like, you don't know. Because I have been that person that had 2 cases of a food that my dogs couldn't eat because it was like, oh, well, error.
The other thing I see a lot is trying too much of something at once. That they're always like, oh, I gave my dog an upset stomach. Well, had they had it before? No. How much did you feed? All of it? Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, or too many ingredients. That's a mistake that I made in the beginning. I got a recipe from someone. And, she's such a nice lady. And she gave me this recipe. I printed it out, went to the grocery store, spent $100 getting all the ingredients. And basically, it was 2 meals. I had 3 dogs at the time. It was 2 meals for each dog. Everyone had diarrhea. And it was one of those where now, as I explain it, it's like imagine if you just get the munchies. And so you have pizza and chips and, 3 different types of chips and then throw in some caramels and then some salted caramels. And then you want a soda. Oh no, a Mountain Dew sounds great. And then you just go and get some fried chicken. I mean, that is disgusting. Even if individually those things sound good, all together in a meal, gorging it is disgusting. Yet we are doing this to our dogs. Expecting them to be okay with the meal. And it's just sort of like, if you are sick, and not to say that dogs on kibble are sick, but it's like, if you aren't at your best and you eat this insanely rich meal, it's not going to sit well with you. But I think because we're trying to race to the finish line, when it comes to raw feeding, there is no finish line. I mean, it just doesn't exist because we're constantly getting new information. Oh, but I know this just came out of nowhere. So excited. I had a conversation with a veterinarian. So I posted something about vaccinations on my page. 200 and odd comments later. I got blocked by a veterinarian and I was just like, I didn't know why because I didn't comment. And so I found her I wasn't going to let it go. But then I was like, no, I want to know why she blocked me because I believe that when we're constantly blocking, and I know this from spammers, if you're constantly blocking and reporting spammers, eventually, or just blocking an account, eventually it's going to get their attention and they're going to go and notice that this person has 1 follower and they post it, 700 times, but it's all spammy stuff. And then they get going. And so I'm really hesitant about when people just block me for no reason. I'm curious to know why. And so I messaged her to ask what's up. And the story she gave me as to why she blocked me blew my mind, and it shouldn't have. But basically, she's actually a traditional vet student. She's on social media as, this page, but she uses a pseudonym. She doesn't use her real name or anything. But she got doxxed by someone in the fresh food community who not only went searching for her real name, address, and everything, but went so far as to call the school and speak to her dean to try and get her kicked out of school.
Oh my God.
And I'm just sitting here like, what? And I wanted to add more, like my Real Housewives self was like, who was it? But I refrained because I was like, I don't even want to go near that rabbit hole. But yeah, she had that experience. But, we started talking, and what's so sad about it is that she was only sharing her perspective based on what she's learned. And
Sure.
she was so afraid that, she's having this back and forth. And what happened is during the conversation, as what people do is all of a sudden we're seeing someone come into our community who's spouting off, vaccinations are safe and da 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 da. People went over to her page and started checking out her page. And that's what freaked her out because she thought she was about to get doxxed again. And so she just blocked me just out of panic. Like that's the easiest, fastest way to protect her, to throw up that wall. And so she unblocked me, but she went and removed all her comments because she was just like, I don't want to take that chance. But I was just sort of like, this is what we've turned into, that we are so incapable of entertaining an alternative point of view. I mean, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to follow it, but I feel like there's plenty of space for all of these viewpoints, even if you don't necessarily agree with it. But it was such a disappointment that someone had that experience, and it came from our side because, I always think that we're crazy and we're mean to each other. But, ultimately we're the good guys here.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me. I'm shocked that they would go so far to call the dean of her school. That is very sad. But my experience, I mean, you were around when a lot of stuff went down. I mean, first of all, people got all kind of time on their hands. Yeah. I'm like, wow, do you not work, go to school, anything? Like, how is this? But it is sad. And I think it's unfortunate because even if there are instances where people make mistakes, but there are also instances where what it sounds like in this young woman's case is that I just learned this and I was just sharing something that I truly in my heart thought to be true because I'm going to school, at this educational institution where I pay money to be here. And this is what they told me. And I just thought it would be helpful to share it with you. And
what's funny is that it was very inconsequential. I mean, it wasn't like, everyone should be vaccinating. You need to do that. It wasn't that. She very much, and she and I talked separately. She's like, I very much have the attitude that it's not my job to make you do anything. It's my job to give you the information so that you're empowered to make a choice for your dog. And so the comments that she said were mostly things like, because I was talking about, heartworm is not an issue in our state. And she was like, here's a map and you should really check this map out. And just FYI, this is what this means. It was like very just informational, and it was sad that that she felt threatened by just sharing information. And it's like, it's unfortunate that we've reached a point where that we can't get. And what's funny is that I don't know why I was surprised because maybe it's the level of it that surprised me because I've seen this so many times where people pounce, and it's not just in, the dog lover community, it's all over the internet. I mean, how many crimes are being solved because people on the internet are like, well, let me get a crack at this. And, but it's kind of scary and interesting at the same time.
Because you see both sides. I guess I always see both sides of a lot of points, right? Where it's like, I understand she's now hypersensitive having gone through this traumatic experience and she's on this hair trigger. But at the same time, from our perspective, it's kind of like, do you know everything that you're learning in vet school? Half of it's wrong, and that all of your information is being filtered by these big corporations that want you to know what they want you to know and are paying for your books and paying for everything. So, I don't know. This is why I just keep my mouth shut on social media a lot of the times,
Well, that's what's so funny is she was like, I wasn't going to comment. And, because I knew by the conversation where you guys were coming from, but she's like, in your post, you were like, you asked the question, what do you do? And so I was just responding to that. And I had typed out this super long post just explaining this is what I think and this is where I come from and stuff. But then it got rejected because she had blocked me. But what was interesting about talking to her is the fact that from her perspective, everything that I wouldn't say everything that we're doing is crazy, but there's an entirely passionate group of anti-raw feeders, and not like against raw feeding, but just sort of like our counterparts, where there's someone, and she sent me the link, and I'll send it to you guys if you're interested, but I'm so fast. I can't wait to dive into this. But someone wrote an entire article debunking the forever dog. So there's like there's an entire community of people who are very much like, and I've always known that there were people who looked at, Karen Becker and Judy Morgan in a type of way. In fact, I banned one yesterday because she came to my thing and was going off about how, Judy Morgan's a quack. And it's just sort of like, you're more than welcome to disagree. But once we get to the name calling point, you've lost me. And so bye. But, there's this passionate group of people who, like, where we're looking at them saying, what you know about nutrition is so minimal, and although annual vaccinations shouldn't be happening anymore. And I did learn why, that was, all of it. I love being challenged because someone comes to me and they spout off what they believe. And I'm not going to just reply, no, you're wrong, jerk. But I'm going to go back and find information to support like that and double check. And I learned so much about vaccinations in the process. But what was so fascinating is just the fact that there is this counter community. I feel like it's the upside down of the raw feeding community, where they're looking at us as, oh, these poor people. And look at what they're doing to their animals. And they're so out of touch and ignorant, and they're following these crazy quacks who, and, they think that, they're like, she said that, these people who are selling you guys, anti-vaccinosis treatments to help your dog with, all of that is, snake oil, and, it's not real and none of that works. And, I wanted to have a conversation of like, well, how do you know? Have you talked to Julianne Lee? Have you actually bought her product and tested it somewhere? How do you know? But again, it's just like us saying, all the stuff that we say about their side. And so now I'm like so fascinated in the upside down, because it's like, wow, look at that.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't quite realize what's scary is that this community is not just, they're not just dog owners, right? They're the people that are practicing and seeing clients and giving. When I went to the vet last week, how painful it was. I'm going to have to do a reel about this later this week, but how painful it was sitting there listening to every person walk in and saying, well, I gave her chicken and rice and, or antibiotics is like the answer to everything, and no questions about like, well, is there actually an infection? It was just really painful just sitting there not being able to say anything.
Yeah. I have a new vet right now, and I thought of you, Erin, on my first visit. I'm sitting there and I overheard the veterinarian say, well, there are actually no studies that prove that CBD oil is effective. And I was just like, Erin's head just exploded.
You're like, hold my beer.
Give me 5 minutes.
Yeah. But it's a whole lifestyle. I think that's what it comes down to, because it becomes down to belief. Like you can cite all of these facts on both sides, but at the end of the day, like, do you believe that this one way of feeding yourself and feeding your animal is better than the other way?
Yeah. Yeah. And I honestly think that most of the pushback that I'm seeing has to do with the the belief that we take things that we're told and we run with it. Like, like the Forever Dog is now our Bible, and we're all changing light bulbs and feeding blueberries and all the different things that are said in this book, when it's just sort of like, no. It's just really great information. It's
Right.
not meant, we're not meant to change our entire lives and twist it around to raise dogs. It's sort of like someone went somewhere and is like, oh my God, I learned all these really great things. Did you know? That's how I've always looked at the book. And it's unfortunate that people outside of the community have such a strong bias that they can't just say, well, yeah, feeding fresh food to me, that's just a no-brainer. But it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I love Rodney's style. He's a digital marketer, and he posts things meant to elicit conversation, right? To get us talking about whatever it is. And the other day he posts this thing about adding a cup of water to kibble could potentially increase microbial contamination. And I'm like, Rodney, wait, did you read it? Like, people are going to freak out, because for years, the fresh feeding community has been like, okay, can't feed raw, want to do 50-50, at least add some moisture into the bowl. And I took a brief look at it. I think it was like 21 dogs, but quite a few of them were puppies. And it was also a pretty short period, like 3 weeks, I want to say. And their gut flora is still developing at such a young age. And then my second question was like, okay, sample size, that's always been an issue in a lot of these studies. What was the food anyway? I think it was a food that's available only in China, and it was made primarily of soy, grains, corn, and it kind of makes sense for a grain to be sitting for a longer period of time in water to develop some sort of bacteria faster than it would if it was meat, soaking in water. But all of these little details were missing. And I get it. Like, I know why he does that, but I think it's also part of what causes the polarization between someone who's a fresh food advocate and someone who's just like, see, I told you guys.
Exactly. Well, and it's one of those where maybe it's because I'm a blogger. So for me, I never take anything at face value. You only have how many seconds 2 seconds to grab someone's attention. And so you're going to put something out there to make them stop. And then I would think that you would go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And then, but no one wants to do that. And one of the main complaints I've had about his content over the years is that he never just tells people what to do. And I've told people, actually, someone blocked me because I told them this. 2 people, they were friends. But I told him, I was like, he doesn't post content to tell people what to do, because all of our dogs are different. All of our situations are different. And he's globally known. So he can't possibly do that. I was like, instead, he gives us information, and it's up to us to take that information and then look at it with our dogs in mind and see, is this something I need to consider? And they were just sort of like, no. He should just be telling us the answer. And I was like, yeah, it would be nice to have someone out there that just knew everything. But unfortunately.
Right. But every dog's different.
And we can't just, as much as we love Rodney and Dr. Becker, Dr. Morgan, you can't just have one person being you're Messiah or whatever, Yeah.
And I think that's what people I'm just going to keep calling the upside down. People in the upside down, they think that they are our, oh, what did they say? Feed dogs blank. Okay. And, and it's just no. Yes, I see people who have if Rodney says it, I'm going to believe it and that's what I'm going to do. Or when you ask people for support on something that they say, they'll just say, well, Dr. Karen Becker said it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Can you send me the link to where she said this? And they can't, because they think that it should just be enough that Dr. Karen Becker said it. But I don't look at those people as like these diehard fanatics. I look at it as people who aren't used to providing support for the things that they put out there. And I do it because I can't just, even though I'm only writing about my dogs, I still need to support what I'm saying with some studies, with some facts, with like, this is where I got this information from. I can't just put out blanket statements and be like, there you go, I'm Kimberly. Believe me.
For our on Feed Reel, we have this feature that pings us after the article's been published for 3 months, and it tells us that we need to fact check our information. So if there's anything new, we do the whole practice of like reviewing all the previous citations and then searching that same topic in the database and updating it.
I want to say shepherdizing right now because I know you get what that means.
Exactly.
And the only thing I think of is Derek Shepherd, McDreamy. So I'm like, you guys love Grey's Anatomy too.
Well, because of you, I'm now about to start rewatching Scandal.
I just finished it. And what I didn't realize is that for years I've been watching it and I've only been watching it up to a certain season for some reason. I don't know why, but I finally watched like the final season again recently. So I'm starting up with Scandal again too. Those are my two shows. I'm like so weird. I mean, Shonda Rhimes, love her or hate her, she puts out some good shows.
She does.
I watched the final season of Scandal and I was on the edge of my seat through this season because I couldn't, the reason why I rewatch shows is because of the comfort of always knowing what's going on. And even though I'm surprised sometimes because I didn't remember, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right. But I had no idea what was going to happen. And I was just like, Olivia Pope has gone off the deep end and I don't know how this is going to end. But then it's like, then it ended. And I was just like, oh my God, that was like one of the best series finales I've ever seen. It was really good.
I can't remember any of it. So
I'm so jealous. Yeah. You're going to have so much fun. I love, love, love that show. It's my favorite show.
So Ruby, the pet parent class is out now, which I think I'm going to buy myself for my Christmas present to myself. And I know you have another course coming out. So what all is coming down the pike?
We've got the professional course, which is really made for a dog owner that is ready to take that next step and really do a deeper dive into the research. But also, we have a lot of aspiring nutritionists, people that want to do meal formulation, and it will probably be very surprising what they find in our course because meal formulation to me is just not a thing, but they'll find that out later. But it's geared towards the aspiring veterinary professional, whether you're an actual veterinarian or someone on staff, a technician, a registered vet tech, or someone who is really interested in providing nutritional advice to other dog owners. The way I like to describe it is that the dog parent course is to help you as an individual parent make your dog's food confidently and comfortably. And the professional course is for you to help others make their dog's food confidently and comfortably. So that's coming down. We're also working on a new gift pack that's going to include both the workshop and the course. That way it will be a little bundle. Once you finish the course, you can go right into the workshop and start making your food right away.
Nice.
That's what I want.
I know. I think it's really cool because I'm getting a lot of people. I built a page on my site similar to my co-op page that has a list of nutritionists because there are a growing number of people who want to offer that service to help other people feed their dogs a healthy diet. Unfortunately, there are people who have such a very strict and narrow idea on how to do this. And the thing about it is I completely understand why. I mean, if you've been doing this for years and it's been working, it's kind of hard to change what you're doing because this is what works. But I've also seen, people feeling like they've been taken advantage of because they got a bunch of recipes that they can't use. Or in 2 cases, I heard of one dog dying and one dog getting very sick because they followed a group that has a way of feeding raw that didn't work for their dog. And so one person's dog basically starved to death. And that made me want to just create a page because it's like, let's get people who are flexible, who understand that not every dog can eat every protein, that not everyone can source every protein, and that, things need to be a little more, sometimes in some cases, like making a basic meal that's not, technically quote unquote balanced and building up on it so the dog can grow and expand and enjoy something. And it's been kind of cool just hearing from people, because when I posted like, hey, if you are interested in being part of that list and you'd offer the service, contact me. And I think most of the comments are just people who are like, this is what I want to do. And so I think that course is so needed, because on the other side is all of those people don't have $900 to spend on a course. And especially in this economy, it's just sort of like, it's just not, it's not affordable.
Well, I'm putting together a page that compares ours to, I think, the same course that you're talking about.
I have that.
Oh, you do?
You've already put together. You already put that together. I have it open. I read it during my sadness of the course is over. Oh, what's this?
You're like clicking on everything else.
Exactly.
I think that the primary difference that most people will find, because everyone on my team has taken that course as well, is that we actually give you practical ways to apply what you've learned. Otherwise, I don't know if you guys remember the last time you were in school. Like, I have a bunch of notebooks with lots of notes and cute little squigglies and stuff on the side, but I did nothing with it. Like, I was just like, okay, regurgitated the knowledge, took the test, and went on with my life. I really feel like, and I hope with other feedback that we get, what people will feel like is that now they know what to do. Now I know what to do. It's not just like, all right, well, I learned this, and there are this many calories in a piece of beef liver.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But you guys should come to my workshop. I should have you on as a guest, Kimberly, because you already do a workshop. You just make your meals on a live every week when you're doing your food prep. And that's basically what I do.
Or hold up a camera and fast forward it. Because I'm doing meal prep. I've done that. So I love that. That's one of my favorite videos that I've ever done, because I'll get messages from people like, it can't be that easy. And I'm like, but it is.
It is. It is. Yeah. And the proof is in the pudding. I am constantly bringing Icon to the vet when something comes up, and like, I'm almost hoping that they tell me it's because of his diet, and it never is. The next thing that I'm doing, I got these 2 tests. I've got my doggy biome and the innovative pet lab. So I'm going to split the sample.
I can't wait to see what you think about the innovative pet labs.
Yeah, well, I know they've made some changes since they got your feedback.
Yeah, they were really so open to my feedback, because I was not happy. I was not happy.
She wasn't.
But it was just like, I'm working on an article about leaky gut, because I'm like so now fascinated with the leaky gut. And I like explaining it to people. Because it's like, now if the gut lining was like cheesecloth, but then the holes I just love explaining that to people.
I was on a talk with Dr. Holly last week where she was talking about some of the research that they're doing. And they're actually working on a blood biome test. And one of the things that'll be able to do is almost like cross-check leaky gut, because you'll be able to see that like these toxins are getting into the bloodstream and that shouldn't be, because they're coming through, the lining of the gut. So I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah. I just think all of that is so cool. Because like when we were at that conference, one of the veterinarians said that all dogs have some level of leaky gut if they're being fed a processed diet. And it's like, and that makes sense to me. And it's just, it's just so kind of cool.
Erin, close your eyes.
What kind of body part is this?
It's his whole rabbit that he's getting for dinner.
Oh, okay.
He's very excited. I know.
One of our local stores sells whole rabbit.
What was that movie?
Silence of the Lambs.
She's named them all. She's like Bambi.
No, the one where she's boiling the bunny. That was
Fatal Attraction.
Yes.
I need to rewatch that.
It's like an old 80s movie or something.
Well, I figure that's one of those movies where I love watching old things. It doesn't even have to be that old, but with today's eyes, man, if that came out today, people would be furious about how dare you picture a woman that way. Women wouldn't do that. And I'm like, she was crazy. That movie was awesome.
Oh my gosh, Ruby, we've taken up so much of your time.
I know. I'm sitting here.
No, this has been a blast.
I'm sorry, Erin.
I know, I have to edit it.
We have to edit.
Oh, right. This was really fun. And again, thank you again for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I so appreciate it.
We'll have links in the show notes. Everybody can get their Real Dog Box subscription, which my dogs are going to get for Christmas, and the Real Dog Box course, which I'm going to get for Christmas.
And if you sign up for the wellness program, you get free monthly nutrition consultations, which is awesome, among a bunch of other things. So, early entrance into the secret shop when there's a drop. Yay!
I can never compete.
Doesn't want to tell.
I could never compete with how quick she is.
I know. I have it down to a science. It's just like when I miss it, I actually, the last one, I almost didn't even bother going because I was running around doing something and I looked at it was 1:00 and it was 1:11. I was like, damn it, everything's gone. But when I went on, I forgot what was there, but there was it was the rabbit feet. I think it was rabbit feet.
Yeah, front feet. We have those back in stock.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on a little holiday package that's going to have duck necks and guinea fowl necks and pheasant necks that you can hang on your Christmas tree. I think it's going to be really cute.
I love it. I love what you guys are doing, and I'm so glad we got to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Have a good night.